Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Reverend Dr. D. This is a program, it's New Paradigms for a New World, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And today, we're going to talk, among other things, about our very special guest, Dana Micucci's book. It's called The Third Muse. It's a novel. Dana, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Richard. Just quickly, it's Micucci, M-I-C-U-C-C-I. Yeah.
All right. Dana Micucci is my guest here on Tell Me Your Story, and we're going to talk about The Third Muse. And of course, I was joking with you when we were setting this up about where's the first and the second muse? Are those other novels, or is this, I will find out specifically what the third is.
Yes, well, the Third Muse is the novel that I wrote that came out in 2014. I have a new book out that we could talk about after this if you like, that just came out a few weeks ago. But The Third Muse, it was a long, long labor of love, Richard. I probably worked on this novel for over 25 years, if you can imagine. Finally was ready to be born. And it's so much of I'm really happy with it. So much of my life is in there in a fictional way. I mean, you use your experience, right? The wisdom gained through experience to write. And but anyway, this is about a young journalist in the New York art world, which I was at one time years ago. And I lived in New York City for 22 years. I was an art journalist and I traveled all over the world. It was very exciting. And so my heroine is that, and she is sent to Paris on an assignment to investigate a stolen Renaissance masterpiece. She winds up in Florence as a result. And this painting actually exists today. It's a painting of Giovanna Tornabuoni by the Renaissance painter Domenico Ghirlandaio from 1499.
Easy for you to say.
Yes, those Italian names aren't easy. And so she gets caught up in an adventure, a lot of life-threatening experiences trying to track down what happened to the stolen painting. But in the meantime, something much more powerful happens, Richard, which is that she makes a connection with the woman in the painting, who was an actual Renaissance noblewoman who was related to Lorenzo de' Medici and was married to Lorenzo Tornabuoni. So there's very, very little information about Giovanna Tornabuoni available. And oddly enough, while I was writing this novel, so much just came to me. I was creating her great room and writing about her home and everything she did and what she wore. And it just, it felt so familiar to me. I really didn't do much research at all because like I said, there's not much information on her. And I had the most amazing synchronicities and divine guidance from spirit while writing this book. For example, once it came out, I wound up in her very great room in Florence in the Palazzo Trinabani, which I didn't even know existed until I started to look for places to speak about the book. It turns out this residence club, which the Palazzo was turned into, had a speakers program. So I spoke about the book in Giovanna's great room. I was just blown away. And then as I was looking through the materials in this palazzo, now a residence club, I learned that throughout history it was called the House of the Muses because it was a gathering place for artists and intellectuals and writers of the time. So that's just very, I mean, it was just so beyond me, and I feel
Mm.
as a writer, and like we all are, we're instruments of the divine. We're simply vehicles for that light to move through us. Whether you're a healer, an artist, a writer, a radio host, a business person, whatever. And so she makes this deep connection with Giovanna, and I don't want to spoil the story, but she has a lot of some similar to what I had, just a lot of remembrances
Mm.
and very, very familiar experiences. So people, when they read the book, could make that leap if they choose to, um, about was Lena Giovanna in another lifetime? And I pose that question. So Lena being my heroine, and really what overlighted this book, and I'm kind of getting the shivers right now, that the spiritual light and wisdom that again just came through me. I was simply the vehicle, came from Mary Magdalene in the Magdalene order. And so there was a lot of the divine feminine consciousness channeling through me from the Magdalene, with whom I had made a connection years prior. And my work began to be devoted to her and her teachings, which is the path of the Christ.
Mm.
The Christ being a completely whole and healed human, as you know.
Hmm.
And there's the feminine face of the Christ. And it's not just within a particular religion, and you're a reverend, and um, it's universal.
Hmm.
And there are many beings who were Christs throughout time, including a lot, all of our Eastern sages and the ascended masters who live in the seventh heaven. So yes, I was very humbled by this assignment from Spirit and the Magdalene, and there was a lot of magic and a lot of miracles around it. So you asked me about the first muse, and again, without spoiling it, I'll leave the first and second muses for people to discover in the book, but the third muse is love,
Mm.
and that is ultimately what. Through all of her adventures and life-threatening experiences, where Lena's just completely shattered and blown open, she really comes to be and embody that high heart love, that universal love at a much deeper level.
Dana Micucci's my guest. DanaMicucci.com is the website. DanaMicucci.com. We hope that you'll go there and check out this particular book, this novel, this mystery. It's sort of tied up with elements of metaphysics and time travel and all the good stuff that we like to talk about here on the program. And I'm always fascinated by stuff like this. But I'm also fascinated by the background of our guests, you included, Donna, because you have a really interesting background, especially in the context of shamanism, if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken, healing and your mentoring practice as well,
Hmm.
and shamanic training.
Hmm.
How did that start for you?
Yes. Well, Richard, I lived in New York City, in one of the most chaotic places in the world, for 22 years. So I moved there in my late 20s, was there for 22 years as an art journalist, and I was, worked for myself, and contributed to various well-known magazines and newspapers. And but it's like, there's something more. We all have that feeling there's something more. And so I set out on this path of discovery, of inner spiritual growth and expansion. And it's just, we go through those phases where we can't get enough, and we're all infinite works in progress, constantly learning. And so I found that I was very attracted to many different healing modalities and also the commonalities between the world's wisdom traditions.
Mm.
Everything from the Essenes and the Christ light and Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, to the Egyptian mysteries and the Eleusinian mysteries from Greece and the Buddhist teachings, and I mean all of it, and the indigenous peoples, which is where shamanism comes in. And I was very attracted to indigenous wisdom, and so I just started training with well-known teachers in the field: Hank Wesselman, Sandra Ingerman, John Perkins, and others. I worked with shamans on site in the Maya lands and in Peru. Uh, and I found that I had a gift of healing. We all have gifts, and perhaps your listeners have the gift of healing, and that applies to ourselves, of course, and to be an instrument of healing, because it's God who heals, not us, who
Hmm.
works through us if we open ourselves as vessels. And so I, again, just couldn't get enough of the shamanic wisdom, which would span various indigenous cultures all over the world, from the Australian Aborigines. And in my work as a journalist, I had the great fortune of traveling to a lot of these sacred sites, which I would choose because I would want to go to the sacred sites for much more than my articles, which were really just a catalyst for my own inner growth and transformation. So I went to the Australian outback. I went to the Maya lands and studied with a Mayan daykeeper, shaman, and elder Hunbutsman. And I went to Peru, and I went to Egypt, and to Cambodia and Southeast Asia, so many other areas where there are very powerful sacred sites. And I realized that, you know, far beyond my journalist assignments, the articles I was sent to write, I was having so many mystical revelations and awakenings, and so much energy was moving through me. And I remember at Uluru, for example, which is also called Ayers Rock in Australia, my body got very hot and then cold, and I just have so many energetic sensations. And I was in my early 30s at the time, and I knew that spirit was guiding me on to uh, a spiritual path, and taking me into many different dimensions. And so I pursued it ever since. And then when I left New York in 2011 to move to Taos, New Mexico, where I am now, which is, as you know, filled with the wisdom of the Native Americans,
Hmm.
uh, and I was attracted to that, I really um, began to weave a lot of this spiritual wisdom and my own mystical experiences into my work. And now that's what it is all about. It's become that. My
Mm.
books, my talks, my workshops. I take people on sacred journeys around the world to various sacred sites. I just finished an itinerary for Peru and Bolivia, where I'm going to take a group in October. And I get assignments. I get assignments from spirit, and I just listen, and I never know what's going to come up. So,
And that's the fun part is not knowing sometimes.
right.
It can be exhilarating because, especially if you're excited about those kinds of things. My
Yes.
mother asked me once, some time ago, she says, "Have you ever had any supernatural experiences?" And I said, "Well, um, if I did, they just seem normal to me, just a
Ah,
normal occurrence." So it's
right.
hard to say. I've been through certain courses and classwork as well. One of the things that really intrigues me, and especially when it comes to healing work, it took me a while to grasp this. My wife and I are both Reiki masters,
Mm,
and we went through our training in, I want to say, 1999, maybe the year 2000,
mm-hmm,
and we were told that you don't control what the energy is used for. You certainly can send it to individuals, you
mm-hmm.
give it to someone there present,
Uh-huh.
but they decide what it is that they're going to use it for. It's kind of
Right.
like the electric company provides you with the electricity. They don't tell you how to use it or what appliances you can plug in to
Right.
use that electricity. And that was one of the things that's so interesting is that the energy, and that's the other aspect of it too, is that everything is made of energy.
Hmm.
But energy is the only thing that really truly exists in the universe. You can
Yes.
destroy matter in the manner of speaking. You can change its form, but it's all still energy, and you can't destroy that. So
Hmm.
we are all energy. We're
Hmm.
walking through it, moving through it, and so on and so
Right.
forth.
Right.
What has been maybe the most profound energetic experience that you have had over the years that you've been practicing,
Hmm.
that that has that literally, well, maybe not literally, but that in a manner of speaking, it turned you around, maybe 180 degrees kind of thing. That's like,
Yeah.
wow, that aha moment, if you will.
Wow, that's an excellent question, and there were so many experiences that I would say transformed me, and they began to build on each other. And I mentioned one at the very beginning of my path at Iluru, where I knew something that, like you said, I knew everything was the energy then. I just knew it in my cells. And then, then I went to the Peruvian Amazon and I experimented as more and more people do now, but this was over 20, this was about 25 years ago, with the sacred plant medicines,
Mm.
ayahuasca and San Pedro and Nunu and Sapo and all these. I mean, I was naive, I think, Richard, because I thought, oh yeah, as a journalist, I'm so curious, and I have to have adventures and experiences that I know are making me grow. And sometimes I'll push myself into that discomfort zone that I call, which is, where we purposely do something that's uncomfortable because we know it will help us grow. And that was the Amazon. But boy, I didn't really know what I was getting into. But those plant medicines are very sacred. It was all done with under the supervision of shamans, and um, it blew me open so much, and as well as many of my meditations. It's not, we don't necessarily need these substances to reach these higher states of consciousness. That just for me happened to be a great catalyst
Hmm.
on my path. And when I came back from that journey, one of my closest friends said, Dana, something about you is different, and I can't pinpoint it, but you haven't been the same. it maybe I think she meant in a good way, meaning, she noticed I had grown, or um, was moving through life differently. So that was one big pinnacle, the Peruvian Amazon. And then I will say, Richard, well, Egypt for me is like going home. I've been to Egypt 5 times. I also have another book that came out, and this is an older book in 2011 that chronicles my journeys to sacred sites around the world and all of my spiritual growth and revelations. And it's called Sojourns of the Soul, One's Woman Journey Around the World and Into Her Truth. And I write about all these various wisdom traditions and what they have in common at the same time as I was becoming more and more aware and unified within myself, which is an infinite journey for all of us.
Hmm.
So, Egypt, oh my gosh, what I call the assemblage points of our reality
Hmm.
that hold what our consensus reality together are so fluid there that all of the timelines converge and collapse. And you definitely have the experience of what the quantum physicists have long been saying, that past, present, and future coexist simultaneously. In Egypt, you just need to walk into that vortex of light, and you
Hmm.
can feel it. And so there were many, many magical occurrences, synchronicities, and I do work closely with, people say, well, are these really beings? Or you could say they're energies, the energy of Isis and the goddess, the Egyptian goddesses Hathor and Sekhmet and Master Thoth. And a lot of these beings, have come back in different forms, and they're so far, far beyond us. Um, anyway, one thing that happened in Egypt that blew me away, and there were many, but I just want to speak of one, um, about this interdimensional bleed through, is
Mm.
what I call it, where without a doubt, not in your mind, in your cellular structure that you are not a body in space and time. You are so much more. You're vast. You're a consciousness that is infinite and vast. And so I had gone through some challenges when I took a group to Egypt. You know, I've been doing sacred journeys for about 14 years. And this was a while ago. I can't remember exactly what year, but years ago. And I took a group, and there were some challenges there that I won't go into. But if people want to find out what they are, they can read my new book, The Years of Living Dangerously, Lessons from the Front Lines of a 21st Century Lightworker. Here it is, came out 2 weeks ago. Uh, after I passed that initiation in Egypt, my husband and I, he's a light worker, he comes on a lot of my journeys. We came home, and what happened is that during the journey, I had a statue of Isis and a statue of Osiris, and I created altars. They were resin statues about this big, and I would put them on the altar just as an energetic anchor. And Isis had some horns in her aspect as Hathor. The tip of her horn broke off, and I thought, oh, I can't have a dismembered Isis on the altar. What am I going to do? But I'd tape the horn back on every time we had a meeting. But at the very last meeting, I went to search for the horn fragment, which was always in a secure place in my wallet. There's no way it could have gotten lost in my wallet, and it wasn't there. And I didn't know how on earth that happened. So we had the incomplete Isis statue on the last altar. And when we got home, Richard, we saw this tiny horn fragment that must have been, I don't know, about a half an inch
Mhm.
on the outside of one of our pieces of luggage.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
then we looked at each other, and now I'm getting the chills. And I said to my husband, I said, we passed the initiation. Isis is returning her horn. So that not only she is now complete, but we are complete with
Mm.
our our lessons, our growth from this sacred journey.
Wow.
So things like that,
Mm.
which were to have no rational explanation, and they're very interdimensional happenings. They happen to me a lot, and especially at these sacred sites, which are so high frequency that you move beyond the density of the 3D. And you really don't have to do much, but focus your attention, set an intention, and be in your heart, and you will open to receive. Now, the Holy Land took it to a whole other level. I mean, people probably aren't traveling to the Holy Land as much now because of what's happening there, but I took a group. I was there twice. I went in 2015 with my husband on a personal trip, and then I took a group in 2018. The miracles, literally, miracles were unbelievable.
Mm.
There are no veils. And especially, as you know, when you align yourself with the Christ light, uh, the miracles do happen, you know?
Yeah.
And we have so much assistance and support from the masters.
I would have to say that one of the most recent miracles, and when I say what year it was, it's not going to sound that recent.
Yeah.
It's nearly 20 years ago.
Uh-huh.
No, 30 years ago,
Hmm.
1996. It was a rather auspicious date in the calendar. It was 3/6/96.
Hmm.
That was the day that I received a lens implant in my right eye, and from that point forward, I've been able to drive. Before then,
Wow.
they wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole and a driver's license. Okay, and that's
Wow.
fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. But I would say that's probably one of those supernatural experiences that
Yes.
my mother was asking me about.
Hmm.
That's really funny too, because the process, and they mentioned something, but now neither my former wife nor my mother will acknowledge what I said. In the
Hmm.
process of preparing for the surgery, which I was completely awake for, and I could see everything that was going on as they're removing the lens and putting the new one in. They have to numb the nerve around the eye in order to do the
Hmm.
work they need to do. So they had to put me under. So they had an IV and I was not under. And then they tweaked it and they put me under. And then they numbed the nerve and then they brought me back out again. Supposedly, I said something or some
Hmm.
things while I was under, and they won't tell me what it was.
Uh,
And I guess
they
that's
won't.
okay. I mean, it's not like
Ah, huh.
I really would like to know, okay? But like
Huh.
I said, it's
Yeah.
okay. Um, and and the process of going through the
Whoa.
the implant and everything was actually extraordinary from the standpoint that I had tried for 4 or 5 years prior to just get a driver's license, just to drive a moped. Oh, just give me a moped.
Yes.
I don't need a car.
Right.
I was bicycling everywhere as it was.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, they said no in Arizona. And then when we moved, well, actually, before we moved to Santa Barbara, I was actually in 1998, I got my driver's license. And I remember when we were driving through Los Angeles on our way to Santa Barbara in 2006, and it dawned on me as I'm looking around out the windows in the front windshield of the car. Oh my God, I am driving through LA traffic at 5 o'clock
Wow.
in the evening. Come
Wow.
on.
Yeah.
So that was extraordinary. It
Hmm.
really was. We're talking with Dana Micucci, and we're talking about her extraordinary walk on the shamanic side, shall we say, as we
Yeah.
continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I am Reverend Dr. D, and we're talking about the work and the life and time, so to speak, of Dana Micucci. And I want to ask you a little bit more about this aspect of hallucinogens. I had a gentleman on the program years ago.
Hmm.
We talked about all these different ways in which we can communicate or connect with the divine and so forth through these different chemicals and so forth that are
Hmm.
all plant based. These weren't made in a lab.
Right.
And there's a story and autobiography of a yogi. I believe it was there, or it may have been one of the books I read to my first wife of Ram Dass, where
Hmm.
one of the disciples thought it would be cute if they took a hallucinogen and they put it into the guru's tea, and the guru would drink the tea and have a trip.
Hmm.
Well, the disciple did just that, and the guru did just that, drank the tea, but he didn't have a trip. But the
Hmm.
disciple did.
Ah.
And when the disciple came down from the high, the guru said to him, "You thought that you could get me closer to the divine. And what you don't understand is that I'm already there."
Right. Right.
So he gave the disciple the trip. Now,
Right.
I've seen the video. We have the DVD of well, the vernacular is ayahuasca, but DMT I think is what the name of the
Yes.
video is. There was one gentleman in there, and this is what intrigued me. There was one gentleman in there who was sharing his experience. He says, "Oh yeah, I was gone for I mean days. I went here and I would did. How long
Hmm.
was I gone?" He asked. "Oh, you were gone for 10 minutes." Now,
Yeah.
the reason that's intriguing to me is that I have never been one who is interested in taking mind altering anything. I mean,
Right.
other than maybe alcohol, beer,
Right.
Irish cream, that kind of thing. I'll have my Black Russian or my whiskey sour, those kind of things.
Sure.
After watching that DVD, I said, I would like, under controlled situation, I would like to try that.
Hmm.
Now, I haven't had the experience yet. I think that one day I will, but
Hmm.
that was so intriguing to me. At the same time, my metaphysical primer autobiography of a yogi speaks to the training that the yogis go through to attain and maintain that state of
Mm-hmm.
awareness to
Mm-hmm.
where they have what is described, for example, when I think it was Lahiri Mahashai with Sri Yukteswar, they went, and or maybe it was Sri Yuk with Paramahansa, they went into a theater and they saw this movie and they come out, and of course his guru says, well, I see that you were not really impressed by that cinematography there or kinescope. So let me give you something. And he slapped him on the chest, and suddenly the disciple was omnipresent, omnipotent, or omniscient, I should say, omniscient, to where he could see and he was aware of everything that was going on around him. And he could hear the people and on and on and on and on. And then the guru brought him back, and he was rather impressed. We can't, let me rephrase that. Can we, and is it something that is really necessary for us to go into a state like that of awareness of maybe not 100%, but 95 to 99%
Mm-hmm.
awareness of what's going on around us so that it can
Mm-hmm.
help us move through to, shall we say, our life's purpose, where we need to go next kind of thing, listening to the still small voice, et cetera, et cetera. What are your observations in that regard?
Oh, I think it's available to everybody. And it just, the plant medicines, DMT, which is a component of ayahuasca, that's like the fast track to get you there.
Hmm.
And like you said, a lot of these Buddhists adepts and Hindu adepts, I mean, they're all over the world, but we think of the East in terms of these beings, that they can do it through altered meditative states. So I do feel that the brain is supposedly the last frontier, right? And that our consciousness is so huge that there are substances that can get us there. And yet at the same time, like you, I don't feel that we ultimately need the substances. If you
Hmm.
like you want to do it because you're curious. I did it because I was curious and I was blown away by that. So I
Hmm.
think it's a matter of what resonates with people. If you want to do the plant medicines, by all means, go, find a local shaman or go to the Amazon, work with shamans there. Uh, I feel that, Richard, we all know that during our daily lives, so much is going on. There's so many distractions. We're pulled in so many different directions. And then there's the heaviness of
Mm.
what's happening in the world. And so it's like we seemingly have to work harder to to be in our center, to be grounded in our sacred ascension vehicles, which are our bodies. And that's one thing I feel that can be overlooked on the spiritual path, is that yes, we want to have these altered states, and there are many ways to get there. At the same time, we want to sink deeply into this earthly experience. It's, kind of a contradiction in terms, and into
Mm.
our bodies, because if we're not, and that's why God gave us our bodies, and if we're not grounded in our bodies on the earth, we can't be of service as effectively. And so I think that would be an equally important practice, grounding practices.
Do you think that there's a good description of what you've just described in the context of what Jesus said about being in the world, but not
Yes.
of it?
Yes, absolutely. And I love that quote, and I use it in my workshops. To be in this world but not of it is our mission. And this is what the great mystics, including Jesus and others, modeled for us. I remember that story of Jesus on the boat in the Galilee when there was a raging storm,
Hmm.
and his disciples on the boat were just, really thrown off center, and they moved into fear. And the story is that Jesus was sleeping
Yeah.
through the storm. And that's a perfect illustration of being in this world but not of it. He was not disturbed by it at all
Yeah.
because he wasn't of the world, and all the great mystics, as we know, their consciousness was so aligned with the divine that they never came out of it. And I feel like, that's our work. we all have glimpses of it. We can even be in that state for longer and longer periods, but to never move out of it, you know, that is the difference between us and the masters.
And that aspect of being in the world and not of it, I find
Yeah.
fascinating from this standpoint that in this day and age,
Hmm.
in terms of what's going on in the world, whether it
Hmm.
be our world here or
Hmm.
anywhere else,
Right.
is that there are so many people who, and this is again my observation, it's not a judgment, but from my
Hmm.
observation, they make the claim that they are believers slash followers, et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera. And yet, and I'm going to put it this way, I know someone who I was having a conversation with. We're on opposite ends of the political spectrum.
Hmm.
Okay. But in our conversation, I made the commitment that it doesn't matter where this goes. This is
Hmm.
still my friend. I love this person, and I'm not going to distance myself from them.
Yes.
And they had themselves so, again, my observation, so
Yeah.
wrapped so tightly in the American flag, I couldn't believe they were actually able to breathe. That's how tight, okay? And it's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, but you claim to be of this philosophy, and this philosophy, by the way, is metaphysical. It's beyond the physical. There
Hmm.
are certain passages that, let's say, in the Bible that do refer to certain physical, material, earthly things, like Jesus getting angry and tossing the tables in the temple and so
Hmm.
forth, or healing people and so forth.
Right.
His main message was metaphysical. It had nothing to do with this world. That
Yes.
the kingdom of God is within you. That's a metaphysical representation. And
Right.
so I sit there going, why do you care that much about what's going on in this world when in 1,000, 10,000, 10 billion years from now, none of this is going to matter? None of it.
Right. 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 That's a good point. Yeah.
Talk to us
It,
about your observations in that regard.
it's a good point. Sometimes, and my husband and I are very much aligned, and we walk this path together, and sometimes I think he keeps up with current events more than I do because he's interested in that more than I am. It's just an interest, and just recently I said to him the same thing. I said, honey, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter ultimately because it's, all of the great sages say this is an illusion.
Yeah.
The Buddhists, the Hindus, the Maya, they all say this is the world of samsara, and even the word Maya means illusion. And
Hmm.
so it's tricky though, because it seems so real. And we have real feelings, and we have bodily aches and pains. And you know, at the same time, it's so much about refining our consciousness to move beyond that. And to me, that's about alignment. It's about coming back to center, which is for me at the heart center, which is the seat of our Christ presence. And I always say the launching pad of our ascension simply meaning moving to higher consciousness and awareness on our return path to God. And a foundational practice going back to the shamanic indigenous tradition is the Toltec practice of stalking yourself, which is one of my practices, STALKING, where you're just simply noticing where's your attention in every moment. And then we
Mm.
all get distracted, and then we just bring it back to our heart center. And when we bring it back to our heart center, as we know, we're more present, and we're in our hearts, and we're grounded in our bodies. And so we're not held hostage by the monkey mind, as the Buddhists call it.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
remember in New York when I was just, constantly seeking. I mean, I'm still seeking, but especially when I was younger, and going to some Zen meditation classes. I was dipping into all the world wisdom traditions, and the teacher told us that Zen, the word Zen, meant intimacy with the heart. And I thought that is so beautiful because the mind agitates the heart.
Mm.
Mind, We need the mind will take care of itself. I always say, yes, we need it to get through life. We need it to do our tasks. We need it. I need it to write, to be able to write. You need it to speak. I mean, but it's like just let it go on its own automatic pilot, but try not to be disturbed by the molecules of emotion that it constantly agitates,
Yeah, yeah. You know,
So,
it's
yeah.
interesting too because first of all, this concept you referred to as self-stalking,
Yes.
I had to stop that and file a restraining order against myself because I was following too close behind. Anyway,
Yeah.
what's also interesting too
Yeah.
is there's a concept that we promote on this program. We ask people to take time during this decade of perfect vision,
Mm,
2020s, to spend
yes.
time going within and listening to the still small voice.
Yes.
And what have found, and of course, I've heard all of the rhetoric, especially of being born and raised Roman Catholic and hearing all of the
Hmm.
stories in regards to, well, you don't need a priest and you don't need this, that. Okay, that's true. I would not disagree. At the same time, I have been greatly blessed by certain priests and a particular Monsignor who came over to my first wife's and my trailer where we were living at the time, and it was around Easter, and they
Hmm.
would go to the various houses of the parishioners and bless their houses. And I remember asking this priest or this Monsignor point blank question. I says, I've seen a lot of crucifixes,
Hmm.
and I see and pictures of Jesus on the cross, and he's always wearing a loincloth. And I said, the research I've done says that the final indignity, not only of the Christ, was that the loincloth was ripped away and he was hanging there on the cross naked.
Hmm.
Why is it that we don't have any representations of that truth? And
Hmm.
he was quite honest. And he said, well, basically, it's because we don't want to upset the sensibilities of the people, which I understood. I
Hmm.
appreciated his candor, his honesty. I certainly disagreed. I said, but it says in the Bible that ye shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. Now, I know the truth there is referring to the message, but I look at it from a greater perspective that when we know the truth, let's say about ourselves, our dark side and our light side
Hmm.
and everything in between, we're free. It's kind of
Yeah.
like some of the politicians over the decades who get caught in indiscretions. And those who say, yes, I have shamed myself and my family. I did wrong. Yes, I admit to this, I guess you might say in Latin, I guess it's a mea culpa. And I recognize that I did wrong. And like Al Franken, he stepped down. He
Hmm.
didn't fight it. He said, "Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with her. I may have acted inappropriately, and for that, I'm sorry." And he stepped down from Congress,
Hmm.
and it went away.
Hmm.
But those who fight it and say, I didn't," like Bill Clinton, who said, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman," and he got impeached, didn't get removed from office, and it didn't go away for a long time.
Right.
And he's not alone in that category.
Right.
Whereas when we start to recognize these are my foibles, and I acknowledge that that's part of what makes me who I am today. That's not who I am today, but it's part of what makes me a better person, I hope.
Hmm.
Whereas there are those who fight it and say, no, 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 and so on and so forth. What about the truth of self? There's I don't know if it was Shakespeare or someone else who said, to thine own self be true, something like that.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that from your experience and perspective.
Well, what I feel, I'm totally in agreement with you, Richard. I mean, the shadow side, we all have this. We're on the duality plane here. We came to master the duality experiment on Earth, which is, if we've noticed, everything in our experiences has its opposite, light and dark, masculine, feminine, spirit and matter, the sacred and the sensual, heaven and earth, everything, hot and cold. And this is what we came to master by integrating these dualities, which perpetuate separation, into one single unified whole, which is what these masters are and the Christ is. In order to do that, I feel, and from based on my experiences, that you're absolutely right. We must acknowledge and integrate our shadow side, not push it away.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't, we're not going to become whole. And when you were speaking, I was remembering something Carl Jung said, the famous Swiss psychologist who I love. He said, enlightenment is not about imagining figures of light, but about making the darkness visible.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this, acknowledging our shadow side is uncomfortable. But remember, it has a lot to teach us.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see it for what it is, and I had these lessons on one level when I was younger and went to Cambodia, and just, you know, realizing that my shadow side played a role in what happened to the Cambodians there, you know, as a citizen. I mean, if we are all one, then we are all responsible for everything that we create. And It really hit home, and my shadow kept coming up for evaluation, for observation, and this continues on different levels the further along the path we go, which is an infinite path of
Yeah.
spiritual growth.
Yeah.
So I realized how important the shadow was back then. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I can't really be fully human, which is also based on a duality, an integrated duality of hue being of the divine and man being the earthly being, man or woman,
Mm-hmm.
who man. And so that teaching to me, and Richard, this is a foundational teaching of the ancient mystery schools.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
is sacred intermarriage of opposites. And all the different wisdom traditions had their own meditations and practices to assist in integrating the dualities within our Sacred Heart Center, which is the alchemical crucible of transformation and wholeness. And so in the mystical Christian tradition, or Gnostic tradition, it was called the sacred intermarriage. The name is escaping me now. Oh, there's a famous word for it in Greek. The hierosgamos. It's
Oh,
called hierosgamos.
okay.
Where, and it's not, people say, well, yeah, I want to perform the sacred intermarriage. How do I do that? Is it so much of the, Magdalene mysteries and the Gnostic mysteries are all about the sacred intermarriage. The Knights Templar were masters of the sacred intermarriage. I mean, they revered the divine feminine and Our Lady, which was not Mother Mary, it was Mary Magdalene.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Magdalene, but all the cathedrals, Notre Dame, Our Lady, and they were all, that was changed by the church because Magdalene was not accepted because she was the exemplar of the fully self-actualized woman. And that means in all of her divine sensuality as well as spirituality, right?
And an interesting twist on that.
Yeah.
After the crucifixion and the resurrection, and this is the funny thing. There are things in the Bible that the powers that be screwed up. They left them in, and I'm one of those who has come to the realization that, oops, you have Mary Magdalene coming upon Jesus post resurrection, and she recognizes who he is and wants to touch the hem of his garment. Now, I take liberties here and I say that the reason why he said don't, no, 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 don't touch, is because the paint wasn't dry yet. But
Yeah.
the fact that she recognized him, but then only a little while later, the disciples come across him and they say, could you tell us where the nearest pub is? We need to drink a
Right,
drink
right,
to our friend who's dead,
right.
who's been crucified.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting going, Mary
Right.
Magdalene should have been the first pope, not Peter.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, Richard. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Not Peter. Well, see, they did everything they could to subvert Magdalene's teachings because
Yeah.
she was, again, I'll take a liberty and say, I really feel in my bones that she was the mystical equal and divine feminine counterpart of Yeshua. And they needed each other. And so, whoa. still today, that's not okay. And then way back then, can you imagine with the patriarchal system, Peter and the others, they were so threatened by her.
Yeah.
So her teachings in the Gnostic tradition, as you know, are the inner teachings of the Christ. And that's what became buried over time, except
Yeah.
in France, where they still remain alive because she's a huge subject of adoration, as you probably know, in the south of France.
Hmm.
Um, and I've taken groups there to the Magdalene sites. I'm getting another tingle because I feel, I'm so connected to her and her wisdom. I'm being used. I'm
Do you
just
remember
being used.
the yeah, do you remember
Yeah.
the author Kazantzakis? And he wrote a book called The
No.
Last Temptation of Christ that was made into a movie.
Okay.
Now I was working
Yes,
for a
I remember.
I was working for a Christian station at that time. And boy, they got on the bandwagon and they tried to stop people from going to see it. And it wasn't even released, and nobody even had a copy of the script, and they were claiming blasphemy and on and on and on and on and on. And I became very curious. So I
Hmm.
got a copy of the book. Now, in the preface of the book, I paraphrase, Kazantzakis is saying basically, these are just my musings, what if? Okay.
Hmm.
Then when the movie came out, I went to see it. Not a great movie. But of
Right.
course, from my mindset, I didn't see
Yeah.
anything wrong with it because it was fiction.
Right.
Fiction.
Right.
And really, what ended up happening was that movie made more money than it really should have, only because the people who were opposed to it screamed louder and louder not to go see it, and it made more and more
Right.
people curious.
Right. Right. I remember that movie. Yes.
Yeah, and I thought, wow, I mean, is this really that important? Again, once again, 1,000 years, 10,000 years from now, is that
Mm-hmm.
really going to matter? It isn't.
No.
So I find it interesting that, and then there's one other phrase I'll throw out to you. I was challenged on my salvation while working there. All right. I wasn't saved.
Ah.
I wasn't ready to meet God.
Oh.
I thought, well, wait a minute. And I even talked with some people about this. I said,
Yeah.
wait a minute. You say that I'm not saved, but you just said in your program 10 minutes ago that it was a personal relationship with God,
Right.
with Jesus. So if it's personal, it's a dyad. It's not a threesome. Get out.
Exactly.
And then I made some other
Exactly.
arguments that I thought were pretty
Right.
salient in that regard.
So
But I
true.
do find that it is rather interesting that on the one hand we can worship. We have the freedom in this country to worship whatever way we want
Hmm.
until people find out how it is you're worshiping, and then they start to say, "Oh, that's not the right way."
Right. And that's judgment, right? And
Yeah,
all judgments, as we know, perpetuate more separation, which is the opposite of what Jesus taught and
exactly.
the opposite of what Magdalene taught. But she
Hmm.
had her own followers in the south of France and the British Isles, after they all left Palestine because
Yeah.
they were uh, being persecuted and hunted down. They were in danger.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
another interesting thing to observe here, because you mentioned quite a number of the different philosophies around the world. And first of all, there is not one, save the first one, that came out of a vacuum.
Right.
Christianity came out of Judaism. Oh, and by the way, if I was going to be a follower of Jesus, I wouldn't be a Christian. I'd be a
Right.
Jew. I'd be a
Right.
Jew because he
Right.
was Jewish.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. But Judaism came out of, and whatever came before that, and before that, and before
Right.
that, until the first one. And I don't even know what the first one was.
Right. Right.
Um, and then I'm seeing more and more programs, documentaries, where more research is being done that shows the stories, for example, in the Bible in particular, are nothing more than plagiarism from ancient wisdom teachings of before the Bible, and
Right.
and so on and
Right.
so on. And these stories
Right.
just keep getting repeated and repeated. And I just think, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could find peace within ourselves and not being passing judgment on other people for the way that they find peace within themselves,
Right. Right.
so that we could have a more harmonious situation. And then one final thing I'll mention to you is I'm a little perplexed as to why it is that Christians in particular are so surprised in their sermons and in their diatribes on social media and everything. They're so surprised about the way things are today when
Hmm.
their own prophecies, by their own admission, predicted that we should be right where we are in the
Right.
quagmire in some instances. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not in favor of, I personally don't believe in a lot of these prophecies of the end of the world and so forth.
Right. Right.
But REM had it correct. It is the end of the world as we know it, every moment of every day of our
Yes.
lives. We can't go back.
Yes.
We can't go back.
Yes. That's a beautiful way to look at it. I like that. And then remember 2012, and we're going to do this great we all woke up on 2012, and in this illusory world, nothing, it seemed like nothing happened. But internally, yes, there were some big shifts in consciousness, you know, and
Harmonic convergence of 87.
and the convergence of 87, and then in between we had Y2K, which was
Mhm.
really crazy. And then but the harmonic convergence is often cited as a huge juncture of planetary transformation because so many awakened people were joining their consciousness to anchor a better world, and
Dana Micucci's my guest, and we're talking good stuff here on Tell Me Your
yeah.
Story. I want to ask you, Dana Micucci, about your perception, your awareness, your, shall we say, connection to divine consciousness, and
Mm.
what is your take on where we might be in, I'm going to go further out than most, 50 years. I mean, in 2060, I'll be 100 years old. My plan is to live to be 100. Okay.
Good for you. Good
So
for
I'm
you.
curious, where do you think, do you think that we will achieve a level of consciousness
Hmm.
that will allow us to transcend a lot of the minutia, and I also like the word quagmire, that
Yes.
we find ourselves in today? Do you think that 35 more years we might find our way to a different awareness and a way of living?
I do, Richard. I'm very hopeful. I think this is a very exciting time because, as we were saying earlier, we can't see the darkness without the light. And so, with all of the shadow, the planetary collective shadow rising, which is disturbing to so many, that is necessary to start anew. And that's because there's more light. More of us are carrying more light. We have worked on ourselves, we've opened up, we're raising our frequency and doing our spiritual work. And we also have assistance from a lot of cosmic events. And I just read that today there was a massive solar flare, one of the biggest in this current solar cycle, and that it's hurling a CME towards the coronal mass ejections towards the planet, which is going to combine with two other coronal mass ejections to create a cannibal coronal mass ejection. When I've never heard of that. And so all these cosmic events, the sun being a huge ascension accelerator, are assisting us in raising our frequency, just as Mother Earth is moving along just fine in her own ascension. People feel like they have to help Mother Earth, and she doesn't need our help. We need to help ourselves
Hmm.
first. We need to focus on self mastery and making ourselves better, doing whatever we can. So I feel like, yes, I am very hopeful. More and more people I'm seeing are more and more awake, more aware, and we all want the same things. We see a
Yeah,
world spinning out of control, and
that's the observation.
that's the observation, right? And so, again, in this illusory quote reality, because I like A Course in Miracles is one of my greatest teachers. And in the Course is a saying, nothing real can be threatened with a capital R, nothing unreal exists. So, this is what, all the mystics say is unreal. But in this quote, unreal paradigm, we went through the COVID passage And so there are all of these world events that have brought people closer together,
Hmm.
even if we're not in each other's vicinity, people all over the world. And technology has also helped with that. So, yes, I think it's like a lightning spark, and that this spiritual growth and awareness will continue to accelerate at lightning speed as the illusion of time moves forward. So I'm very excited about that. And at many of my events, I do a shamanic journey with people where I say just that. I say, I want you to travel to the new earth. There's all this talk about the new earth. It's
Hmm.
not, the death and disease and lack and limitation of this current paradigm. It's a whole new paradigm, which
That's
is
what we talk about here. New
here.
paradigms for a new world.
Right. And that's what we are all, people like us, we're all helping to usher in, and we're, assisting others in that journey, like kind of holding open the hatch on a sinking ship, saying, come on, cross over the Rainbow Bridge to the new earth, which I feel is a frequency, and the new earth frequency is here. It's
Hmm.
here now. We just, like we're tuning into a radio station, we just tune our own frequency to the new earth frequency, and we're living in and on it, right?
Yeah.
And it's a matter of, where is your consciousness now? When will all those new earth gifts be shown to us, such as the eradication of disease, as collective prosperity, for example, as healing, and even no need for healing eventually? All of this will more and more anchor in this 3D paradigm, the more that we align with each other, become frequencies specific with each other in the higher realms of light.
Yeah.
So,
And I mentioned duality earlier, and
mhm.
I struggled for a few years with the whole concept until I
Yeah.
came to the realization that there is no duality. And here's how I came to that, very simply. You take a look at both the macro and microcosmic
Mhm.
worlds. The macrocosmic, we're looking through the James Webb Telescope, and we're looking at the universe, and we're watching things moving and spinning and crashing and exploding and all of this stuff. And our observation, no judgment, in my observation, ooh, wow, oh, wow, that's cool. Look at that. Oh, very cool. Now, take your electron microscope where you're able to look at live cells and subatomic
Yeah.
particles. They are doing exactly the same thing, as above, so below.
Right.
However, when you get to what I don't even like the term, but I came up with it anyway, the mid-crow between macro and micro, this
Hmm.
world in which we live, this reality, that's not our observation. It's or ecstatic, joyous bliss and so forth because how
Hmm.
wonderful that was and so forth. And it's like, wait a minute. If it's ooh and ah at the macro and the microcosmic levels,
Hmm.
it's the same here. It just is what it is. No judgment. Okay. And I was
Hmm.
able to make peace with that concept
Right.
and say, okay. And for example, and then there's this other part too, where people love in this country, of course, they talk about how we have the right to own property. Well, there's a beautiful Irish saying: "You don't own the land owns you." And in
Mm.
10,000 years, this house that my wife and I are living in will probably be dust. Okay.
Yes.
So we don't actually own it. I don't care if we paid cash and we don't owe a
Right.
dime on the property today. We still don't own it.
Right.
And
Right.
so until we come to the realization that you can have all of the pieces of paper with all of the words that you
Hmm.
want on it,
Hmm.
defining however you want to be and live, the reality is we don't even own the body that we reside in because one day
Yeah.
it will be dust too.
Right. Right.
How do you teach people to get refocused on not just raising their consciousness and their consciousness being focused, but recognizing that it is the non material or spiritual world that is where we need to place our attentions. And again, I'm not saying ignore the material world
Right,
because we
right.
create from the spiritual to the material.
Right. Well, so much of my work, Richard, is founded in what I call embodying the wisdom of the heart.
Hmm.
And for me, the heart is the place. It's the still point, our inner GPS, as I call it, our inner God positioning system, the heart center. I'm not necessarily talking about the physical, the heart center and the high heart center, which opens us to the universal love and consciousness. And so I will share practices. One of them was that Toltec practice of stalking yourself. There's heart centering prayer from the Gnostic tradition. There is the Heart Sutra from the Buddhist tradition. And what I find fascinating is the subtitle of the Heart Sutra is called The Cure to the Illusory Mind.
Mm.
So the Buddhists chant the Heart Sutra, which if you ever read it, it's, oh my gosh, it's just one contradiction after another, just like Yeshua's parables, right? Like nothing is real, nothing is stained, or nothing is pure, nothing is stained, nothing is born, nothing dies. And it goes back and forth. It just to kind of, you know, kind of get us out of the mind, to short circuit that thinking that can so much get in the way until we get to the end of the Heart Sutra, which is a beautiful meditation called the Gate Gate meditation, where it's Gate Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisvaha, which means gone, 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 completely across to the other side, which is that point of unity and stillness and wholeness at the heart and high heart center. And that there, according to the Ascended Master teachings, to mention another tradition, there's a tube of white light that extends from our heart centers up through our crowns to our I am presence, which is our immortal God presence.
Mm.
That's our spark of God, and that's connected further on to God. And so, the more and more, and all of our meditative traditions teach this, the more that we can drop out of our heads and into our hearts, the faster we will reach that state of enlightenment, however long, quote, long it may take.
And speaking of the heart, I saw a piece just the other day where
Mm.
this gentleman was talking about the muscle we call the heart, and basically science has determined it's the only muscle in the human body that has, I don't want to say an electrical charge because I know that it does, but it's like it has its own aura slash, if you want
Mm.
to use the word chakra, okay?
Yeah.
But they've been able to measure it, they've been able to see it, they've been able to
Wow.
experience it. It's the only
Right.
muscle in the human
Huge.
body, and it gives the heart a greater, shall we say, importance or significance
Yes.
in terms
Yes.
of our our spiritualness or essence, and that's sort of that's the physical connection is the spirit connects to the heart of man.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that makes sense. It has its own intelligence, right? People talk about the brain and the heart.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
To me, it's just fascinating what is coming out. And again, I
Yes.
know there are going to be people who are going to poo-poo this, and they're going to,
Yeah.
no, you're crazy. You two are absolutely bonkers.
Right. Right.
We'll get you to a rubber room somewhere,
Yeah.
and you can bounce off the walls all you want. We're talking with Dana Micucci, and she's an award-winning author, spiritual teacher, and healer, and her transcendent new memoir, The Year of Living Dangerously: Lessons from the Front Line of a 21st Century Lightworker. Someone said to both my wife and I, although they were saying it to me, and I shared this with my wife, that we do not have, and this was their intuiting this, a physical home on this planet. Now, yes, we have a place to live.
Right.
That's not what they're saying. They're saying that some people they have sort of this anchor space. My mother, for example, she lives in Phoenix. She lives in a townhouse. She and my sisters all live there in the Phoenix metropolitan area, and that's probably where they will live. My father, that's where he lived and passed away
Mm.
in Phoenix. Whereas I've lived in well, I could say four different places. One was Idaho, but I was only there for a month. I've lived in Phoenix, then we lived for 20 years in Santa Barbara, and now here we are up on the mountains above San Bernardino. And it's not that I feel disconnected, it's that it doesn't matter to me where I am. I had a
Right.
dear friend who told me when we were in Santa Barbara that that was exactly where I needed to be at that time.
Right.
And then the universe opened up a way, just like it did in 2006, for us to move here. Now, we didn't know we were going to buy. We thought we'd find a place to rent and so forth and so on. But we stayed open to the universe. There's been a lot of stress and struggle and
Hmm.
challenge and so forth in the last few months, unlike 2006, when there wasn't that. There was no fear, there was no concern. We had a moving company that came and packed everything and put it in the
Hmm.
truck and off the. Whereas this time we did it ourselves. It was self moving, and that's part of where the struggle was.
Right.
But anyway, that we are light workers and that we are to shine our light wherever it is that the universe places us. And that doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean that this is the anchor point up here on this mountain 6,000 feet above sea level.
True.
Um, do you find yourself feeling that way at all? I mean, there's a manner of speaking, you're anchored to another human being in a marriage, in a relationship, in a commitment and so forth, as am I. But in terms of the space you occupy, does it feel like, yeah, this is what we call home?
That's a very good question. And I totally agree with you in that, that the old cliche, home is where the heart is. And home is here. It's
Mm-hmm.
within us.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Buddha saying, which has also become a cliche, wherever you go, there you are. And, and so we home to me is everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's traveling all over the world to all these sacred sites has really shown me that
Yeah.
and we're connect as long as we're connected to God as
Mm,
much as possible, as much as we can be, as much as we can notice, aligned with the divine. That's our true home, and
mm.
it doesn't matter where we are in the physical world.
I was in a program back in the 80s. It was called LifeSpring. It was,
Hmm.
I thought it was an outgrowth of EST, but a woman
Hmm.
who was involved in L. Ron Hubbard and EST program said that that wasn't, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, so we're there in the room, and people are grumbling the first night. And they're like, I don't really want to be here. I don't know what's going on. I don't like any of
Hmm.
these people, blah, 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 blah. Facilitator stands up and says, I understand there's a little grumbling going on. Some of you don't want to be here. Well, I have a surprise for you. If you did not want to be here, you wouldn't be. You would be somewhere else. So logic dictates
Hmm.
that because you are here, this is where you want to be. That's kind of like the same thing that you were just saying of those other quotes, that we are where we are because that's where we want to be. Because if we didn't want to be there, we'd be somewhere else.
Exactly. That's just logical, right?
Yeah. So if
Hmm.
you're you want to, put these labels on it. If you're in a crappy relationship, a horrible job, a neighborhood that just sucks, the people are just awful and garbage everywhere, well, that's where you want to be. And if you don't want to be there, then go somewhere else.
Go somewhere else.
And
That's
then
so
we give
true.
all the reasons why we don't.
That's so true, Richard. And then it leads into the idea, which is a real tough one
Hmm.
for all of us humans, is that we are the projectionists of our reality. We're the
Hmm.
filmmaker.
Hmm.
We're the ones who create everything. And people say, well, but I'm a good person, and how come I wouldn't create all these bad experiences? Well, your soul created, we'll say, tests and trials
Yeah.
so that it could grow. And sometimes we're not conscious of that, right, in our
Mhm.
daily lives. But at a deeper level, we came in with a blueprint. And I
Yep.
see it as, and then you get into this whole other discussion about fate and free will. And,
Yeah.
I see it as both. It's both.
Yeah. And
And
then there's the quote by Steve Urkel.
Yeah.
Did I do that? And the answer is
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And it's reminding me so much is coming up through our very enlivening discussion is reminding me of the practice of Ho'oponopono.
Thank
Why
you.
that came to
Yes.
me now?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I don't remember the order of it, but I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Well, the Hawaiian Huna who taught that to the world. And then there's this story about Dr. Hugh Len, who was a psychologist. This just blew my mind.
Hmm.
And did you hear about this? Somebody shared the story where he was assigned a case to heal a whole mental hospital of the criminally insane. And he said to himself, he was a practitioner of Ho'oponopono. He said, I wouldn't have been given this assignment, meaning he accepted responsibility for creating his reality, unless I had this within me, unless I had criminal insanity within me. So I'm going to look within myself and clear all of that within myself. And he did Ho'oponopono, just holding like the whole hospital of patients in his mind, connecting to God, doing Ho'oponopono, clearing, clearing, clearing all of these distortions within himself. And guess what? He healed every single patient without even meeting them.
Mm.
And the hospital closed down
Yeah.
because they all got to leave the hospital.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
remember there was uh, a view that um, we are the ones that need to be locked up in the institutions. We need to
yes,
let those who are in the institutions, we
yes,
need to unlock those doors and let
yes.
them free. Now, I also think too of those who are labeled as, I'm trying to think of the two. There are two things here. One of them is autism, and then there's a second one that's similar, but it's
Mm.
escaping me,
Asperger's.
possibly. But
Yeah,
these individuals, they are living in the now. They are not
yeah.
living in the past, and they are not living in the future in their minds.
Right,
Ergo, they're the quote unquote normal ones. We're the screwed up ones because we
right,
can't seem to grasp the now. And I
right.
have a dear friend who's been on this program a couple of times. His name is Billy Mandarino, and he wrote a book, and he also calls himself by the same title of the book. And the book is entitled The Nowist,
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's
right?
really clever. Yeah.
And and of course, that's where his focus is on the now, because first of all, there's nothing we can do about the future. Man, we don't
Right,
even know what that is.
right,
And same thing, we don't know, we can't do anything about the past. It is
right,
already locked in. The only thing that we can really do about the past is change our perception of the past
right,
so that we can let it go. We can't change the
right,
events that took place.
right.
And that's one of the things too that I remember when our Ford F-150 truck was totaled,
Mm,
and it was the vehicle right before the one we're driving now.
mm,
And I remember seeing the truck in its totaled state, where it was stuck. And the first thought that went through my mind was, oh, okay, so I wonder what we'll get what kind of a car we'll get now. And we got a higher gas mileage vehicle. And it's funny how, from that point, and this was 2024 April, from that point, and I know there were some prior to that, but
mm,
that in particular, that when I look back to where we are right now, and go back to that point, I can
mm.
see how the universe was aligning things for us, because that vehicle, that truck, it had a much lower gas mileage, which meant we were going to be spending a lot more money on gas, which again,
Mhm.
I'm a believer now, thanks to my wife, that it is what it is. The price is what it is. You either pay it or you don't, and don't complain.
Right,
Don't judge it,
right,
right? But we got into a higher gas mileage vehicle that gets us around just fine. We're now living up in a place that does get snow, but we have all-wheel drive. And I've already made the commitment. If it's snowing and the roads, we're not going anywhere. There's no reason to go anywhere. Stay put. Wait until it's
right,
plowed. All right.
right.
And again, looking at all of the other events, which I won't go into, that have really shown the way that the universe, just like back in 2006, we both lost our jobs and we had a pretty good sized nest egg. So we were able to do what we did to move. And kind of the same thing happened this time around.
Mm,
But that's what I was always telling my wife. I said, look, I'm waiting for the universe to make a way. I'm still doing my thing. I'm still doing the things that I feel led to
right.
do. But the universe, in its divine timing, will open the doorway, the gates, whatever, to allow us to move to the next step, the next level.
Yes.
I hope I live to be 100. That's 35 years away. My
Hmm.
wife is 74, and I hope she lives as long. But at the same time, this is a temporal world. It's all temporary.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Steve Martin back in the 70s said, they say you can't take it with you. Well, I'm taking it with me. Well, let me tell you something. After the moving process that we just went through, ain't no way I'm
You
taking any of
want to
this.
take that, right?
No way.
No, moving is one of the most stressful things in life. Oh,
But I will
yeah.
say that we are now enjoying ourselves more and more as
Good.
we get unpacked and
Good.
explore the area.
Yes.
And I'm enjoying myself more and more as I continue talking with people such as yourself, Dana Micucci. And we're going to talk more here in just a moment as we talk more about the year of living dangerously. That's kind of what I feel. First, I called it 2025, the summer of hell, but I'm going to rephrase that to basically saying it's the year of living dangerously. And we survived as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. This program is extraordinary always, and it goes long sometimes. And there are opportunities for us to play the whole darn thing on the radio, and that's what we're doing here. But it's also available as a podcast and a video cast. And Dana Micucci has been my guest, and she has the third Muse, which is a novel. I hope you'll get a copy and go to her website, as well as the book the years, I should say, it's plural, the years of living dangerously, lessons from the front lines of a 21st century light worker, who that is who Dana Micucci is. And I want to thank you so much for being a part of the work we're doing here. And I want to invite you to come back again and continue this conversation. This is fascinating stuff.
Oh, Richard, it's been such a joy to be with you and laugh with you. And yes, thank you very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
I have three final questions I'm going to ask you that I ask all of my guests. But before I do that, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. And we are podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. And we hope that you will subscribe and click notification. We also ask you to go to Amazon to get a copy of my book, which is Choices 5 Steps for Life. It is available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And we ask that if you can, leave us a tip. We have a tip jar. It's called PayPal. And at richarddugan.com, there are links to both Amazon and PayPal. We thank you, thank you, thank you for those who have helped and to those who will help. We appreciate it very much. We also ask you finally to take some time to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It will never, ever put you in harm's way. However, it may challenge you. And that's the whole point, is to teach us all as we are challenged through those experiences. So trust it. Let me just give you a word of advice. Trust it. All right. Define it. Okay. Verify, but also trust it. And with all of that, we move to the final three questions of our program to our very special guest. The first of those is, who is Dana Micucci?
Huh. Aha. You want me to answer that? Huh.
Well, I can't.
I will say that's a very, it's interesting. I become less and less identified with what I do per se in the world.
Hmm.
It's like we can label ourselves and say, well, I'm a writer, I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm a healer, yes, right? I'm an author,
Mhm.
yes. But more and more, you know, speaking about presence, I feel like I am a being of light, like everyone else, every other sentient being on this planet and beyond, um, who is connected to God. And maybe I could say, like we all are, I'm a divine creator being of infinite potential.
Hmm. Well, what gets you up in the morning?
What gets me up in the morning? Oh, Richard, being of service in any way I can, inspiring, uplifting, informing people, educating people from my own experience and the world's wisdom traditions. You made a comment earlier that I thought was great. It's like, we don't, or you were implying, we don't really own this wisdom. It's the perennial wisdom of the ages. It's not
Mhm.
ours. We are simply temporary stewards and keepers of the wisdom. And I feel our obligation to share it, and we all have very instructive, illuminating life experiences, and we're all teachers to each other. So I think that's what gets me up is that how can I serve? How asking God, what would you have me do today?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. And
Mhm.
finally, what was your best day?
Wow, my best day. Oh, wow. I've had a lot of amazing days, a lot. But I would say okay, I'm going to narrow it down to years right now.
Okay.
2 years. 2011 and 2012 were incredible years for me. Well, in 2011, I turned 50 and I left my life in New York City. I moved to Taos, New Mexico, which is a very magical, enchanting place. New Mexico is called the land of enchantment. One of the best things I ever did. I met my husband here. My book Sojourns of the Soul came out, which was my first spiritual book to come out. So that was a really pivotal year in my life. But I'd say my best day is every day because I feel so grateful to be alive. I feel grateful for the gift of life and the opportunity to connect with people heart to heart,
Hmm.
like you and others, and to love and create.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for the time you've given us here on the program. I look forward to having you back again to continue this conversation and let the universe take us where it will conversationally. As I've always said, the universe asks the questions. I'm just along for the ride.
Thank you, Richard. I'd love to come back to your show. And like I said, it was a real joy to be with you here today and to connect with you.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, video cast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.